I now call this Board of Selectmen meeting to order on Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. Before we get started, I do want to read just an order here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Adams Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. However, all members of the Board of Selectmen are present. It's just remote for others who are calling in from the public. So no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort has been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. We have posted today's agenda accordingly, which included the call-in information for today's meeting. But a reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by tuning into channel 1303. Thank you to our friends at Northern Berkshire Community Television, but specifically Peter Gentile, who has not missed a meeting since we started this process March 18th, or by calling 1-929-436-2866 with a meeting ID 9305755. 4395, or via zoom.com, meeting ID 93057554395 with a password of TOABOS. And if you missed that information, it can be found, as well as all information for subsequent meetings while Town Hall remains closed. You can find all of that information on the town's website at town.adams.ma.us. And despite our best efforts, if we're not able to provide for real-time access, a recording of this meeting will be posted on nbctc.org as soon as they are able, or it can be made available upon request. With all of that being said, I would like to ask all of you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I also want to point out that it is EMS week, and I just want to thank all of the EMS workers, all of our EMTs, frontline workers, and just celebrate them this week. So I just wanted to take a moment to do so. With all of that, I guess we can get right into business, and it's nice to see all of you gentlemen 6 feet away from one another, but at least here. So with that, the first item of business is approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes before us this evening. One for April 29th, 2020, and the other is May 6th. It is my understanding all members should be able to vote on these. And what is the board's pleasure?
I make a motion that we accept the meetings as written.
The minutes is written for April 29th and May 6th?
Yes.
Thank you, Jim, for the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I have a second by John. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or an abstention? All right. That is unanimous. That brings us to public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the board about a matter that is not presently on the agenda? I will unmute our callers. Ed, Linda, Deb, anything that you wish to speak about this evening to the board?
No, thank you.
Okay.
No. Thank you.
Okay. Then hearing none, I will go ahead and mute all of you again. Only so that we don't have all the background noise, not for any other reason. All right. So I'll close public comment. We'll move on to old business. And We have this evening Haley Meswar, our town clerk, who's going to give us an update on the town election and do the best to use her outdoor voice.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, great.
All right, I'm just here. I feel like I'm a broken record, but I like to come before the Board of Selectmen just to keep announcing that there is going to be a town election. It was postponed from May 4th to June 1st. It's going to be at the DPW garage. It's going to be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Those are our voting hours. If you don't feel comfortable with coming to the polls to vote, we still want to encourage you to vote. I know that some of you may not feel comfortable about doing that. So if you want to, you can request an absentee ballot or an early voting ballot. You have two options. You can do one or the other. If you want to call us in our office, we're more than happy to send you one of the applications, and then you can, we'll send it to you, you get it back to us, we'll mail you your ballot. If you don't feel you want to do that and you just want to jot down a little note and you sign your name to it saying that you're requesting an annual town election ballot, we're more than happy to send it to you that way too, to make it a little bit quicker. Because I know we're approaching, it's only a week and a half away, so we want to make sure that we get all of our voters covered and that you have plenty of time to get your ballot in the mail and get it back to us. If for some reason you don't get your ballot until next week, next Friday or Thursday, and you want to return it, you are more than welcome to return it to the DPW garage. We're going to allow that this time just because of the time crunch that we're under. And you're more than welcome to just run it in, give it to us, and leave. Somebody will be by the door, so you can do that also. But we also want to encourage anybody that is coming to vote in person. I would really encourage you, if you have a mask, please wear it. It's for your protection and for all of the workers' protection. We will have protection for them. We're trying to make that work as safe as possible for them and for them to feel safe coming out to be there from 7 in the morning to 7 at night to check you all in and get your ballot and get you, checked back out. But I will really encourage, if you do have a mask, please wear it. We really would appreciate that to the fullest that we can. We want to keep everybody as safe as possible. I think that's about it. I can say that a lot of people have taken advantage of the early voting. We've seen a huge increase in our absentee and early voting ballots. We typically have, between 30 and 40 for an annual town election. We've mailed out 155 ballots so far. So we've seen a huge increase, which is really nice, and hopefully people will stay safe and, feel safe when they come to voting on Monday, June 1st.
And Haley, just a quick thanks to Mass Emergency Management Agency, Northern Berkshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee. They were able to provide not just Adams, but other communities with PPE for our election workers. And we'll have a custodian on duty full-time at the garage. We have plenty of masks, we have gloves, and we have plenty of cleaning supplies. So we are prepared. We're ready to go.
Yes.
So thanks to MEMA and the Emergency Operations Center for helping us out.
Yes, thank you for coordinating.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I just have a comment. I'd like to personally thank Virginia Duval for the work that she's doing, trying to promote people coming out to vote. So thank you, Virginia.
Yes, she's been sending out lots of emails and encouraging people to come out and vote, and encouraging people, if they don't feel safe, to certainly vote by mail.
Right.
Madam Chair, I have a question. So you can go to the town's website and you can print out the absentee ballots,
Correct.
and then you can submit them. What is a reasonable date that one must have these mailed in to be able to make it to you by the election day? I know there's another option. If it doesn't, you can still go to the DPW garage if you're late, but try to get it in, is there a certain day, by this date?
I will say, I will give a shout out to the post office. They've been excellent in working with us. We get the applications in the morning. We process them, we get the ballots all set and ready, and I drop them off right after lunch, and people are getting them the next day because they're staying in town. So the post office has been wonderful to work with. I'm not going to say that that always happens, but it has been happening under most of our circumstances. I've mailed out, we've gotten the application in, we've mailed it out that day, and it's back in our drop box out front. I forgot to mention that. It's back in our drop box out front, so it's a 2-day turnaround. Yeah, if somebody does get an absentee ballot or an early voting ballot and they don't want to stick it in the mail, they're more than welcome to put it in our drop box out front of here at Town Hall. So I would say the latest, they can request, they can request it up till next Thursday, the 28th, but I would certainly say if they are at all interested, the earlier the better.
Anything else?
I do. I have a question if that topic is concluded. The board has received information in regards to the 2010 census. And at the time, Adams had 8,485 residents. And I know every year the town does a census,
Yes.
I believe. First question is, for the current year or the last year that you have done the census, how close are we to the 8,485 residents from like last year?
I'd say we're pretty close.
Pretty close to that number still. So we've leveled off. Okay. And the last question in regards to when we were here together prior to the COVID-19 virus, when it hit, we were having some great inputs from our town leads in regards to getting people to sign up for the U.S. Census. It was really good news. The board was excited about the path we were taking, and then the virus hit. So is there any change in when the U.S. Census is due? Or do you have any idea how we're doing? Because I know at a certain point, they will let us know how many people have submitted a census form. So how are we doing in that area?
Well, I wish I could report that we were doing a little better. Massachusetts itself for self-response has been at like 61.9%. Adams, currently as of today, was at 64.8%, with 53 of that percent being done through the internet. So whether they did it through the internet or they made a phone call, I can tell you that they have mailed out paper census forms. So that probably that extra 10% is between the phone calls and the paper that have gone out. I haven't heard that they're going to extend it as of yet, but that's hopefully a possibility. I mean, even across the country. We sent out flyers. They passed out flyers 2 weeks ago at the food bank. There were a couple of food banks that we did a flyer. We put it out on there. We posted, they had a weekend, a media weekend, through the internet. So we did a notice on the town website. We did a notice on our Facebook page here. Erica did one, our COA director, she put it on her Facebook page, and I believe that Holly, our library director, put it on hers also. So, I mean, we're doing okay as far as, when the pandemic hit, what are you gonna do?
And I think one of the next phases is follow-up. Not sure how that's going to happen.
I don't know how that's
No
gonna
one
happen
knows.
either.
It's one of the several unknowns we'll talk about this evening. But, okay, I appreciate the current status.
I mean, I certainly hope that if they mailed out one mailing to residents and paper, that at least they'll hopefully try to do another mailing also. And we will certainly try to continue it through Facebook, our town website, and hopefully through the food bank. And as I was just thinking that maybe we could send out a flyer, because I know the Charity Center is starting back. They started last week, and I think this is their third week, so maybe we can get a flyer to them too, and they'll stick it in their bags as they do that too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? I'm sorry, Rick or Jim? Okay.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
If you will let Donna know that she's free to come in and wait, that would be great. So that brings us down to new business. And as we have with all of our meetings, we've started off with a COVID-19 or town operations update. Jay, is there anything that you would like to update us on at this time?
I can give a very brief overview of some of the reopening information that was disseminated by the governor's office Monday and analyzed yesterday. However, first, we have one new active case in the town of Adams for a positive COVID-19, so we're up to approximately a total of 35 cases. In Berkshire County wise, I believe we're now up to an even 500 with an approximate 37 death count on there. So our numbers are very good, both regionally and within the town, and the general consensus is that we are stabilizing. However, with that being said, it's a very fragile stabilization. Town operations have remained the same. We have not made any changes recently. We continue to operate on split hours as well as buildings closed to the public. As of Monday, there was an announcement by the governor with his reopening Massachusetts plan. There is no immediate impact to municipal operations. And we will remain status quo at least through June 1st. On May 25th, next Monday, there is a provision for office space to be open. However, there's a limitation that can only be with folks equaling less than 25% of maximum occupancy. So we are just presently reviewing our sanitation procedures. We're reviewing our custodial supplies, and in very early June, we're going to have a department head meeting and discuss with all of our departments and building managers exactly what a reopening plan will look like for the town to be ready to do so. The biggest key with reopening is the sanitation of our buildings. Visitor Center and Council on Aging. That is a very popular building, open to the public during the summer months, adjacent to a very popular recreational trail that also handles an incredibly vulnerable demographic here in town. We have to balance that need out. So we're going to be assessing what that building looks like when we reopen. The library as well is a public building with traffic. We have to reassess that. We only have 2 full-time custodians, and they are responsible for handling all of the public buildings during the normal course. But everything about reopening that you can find in this document, Reopening Massachusetts, talks about a sanitation plan. There's going to be an incredible burden upon the town custodial staff in order to meet these standards. So it's not as easy as flicking a light switch and opening the door saying we're open for business. We have to be methodical about how we do this. So that's where we are in terms of town operations. In terms of the public should know that there are not many changes right now effective as of Monday. However, manufacturing, construction, and retail with curbside pickup, places of worship, and firearms retailers and shooting ranges may now operate. As of May 25th, laboratories and life science facilities, offices limited to less than 25% of maximum occupancy may reopen, car washes for exterior and self-service only, hair salons, barber shops by appointment only, pet grooming by appointment only with curbside drop-off and pickup, and certain outdoor recreational facilities and activities. In terms of the outdoor recreational facilities and activities, all of the additional guidance provided by the Office of the Governor and Department of Public Health indicates that what we are doing now with our parks, which are closed and only open for passive recreation, is the standard through Phase 1. Phase 1 of reopening will remain in effect for approximately 3 to 4 weeks unless the data says otherwise, meaning we either start to slide back with additional positive hits and we have to maintain a Phase 1 status for a period of time, or at the 3 to 4 week mark our numbers look good and we can then progress into Phase 2. I've asked DPW Director Tober to review the implications for our outdoor facilities in Phase 2, and we'll have more information as we go, but we do not anticipate any significant changes for at least another month to some of our outdoor facilities. Greylock Glen remains accessible, the rail trail remains accessible, and our open spaces remain accessible for passive recreation only. I would advise any any business in town to look at the Reopening Massachusetts website first. There's a lot of information on there. It's very well compartmentalized. It just needs to be reviewed. So if you're a restaurant, you want to review the information that will be provided by the Department of Public Health and the Governor's Working Group for restaurants. If you're a retail establishment, office establishment, or manufacturing, go there first. None of this is regulated by the town of Adams or any other municipality. All of this is regulated by the Division of Labor Standards and the Department of Public Health. However, it is enforceable by the local Board of Health and municipal government. So before you reach us here at Town Hall, get that data first, get your baseline, and then call the Inspection Services Bureau, have a conversation with Jerry or Mark if you have any additional questions. They're coming up to speed now. They're digesting everything as well. So we just have to take this slow as we go. Otherwise, there's not a lot of significant information really to pass out. That's all I have for town operations.
Okay. Any questions for Jay? I'm going to start with John, just because for camera, if there's any questions or comments.
I'm good right now.
Okay. Jim?
Oh, I just have a question. I think Jay answered it anyway, but I received a few phone calls and text messages today about Little League. The possibility of that starting. I really don't know. I mean, you know.
Any of those folks need to go to the Reopening Massachusetts. There's specific guidance under the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, EOEAA. They need to go in there, and there's specific guidance for that type of athletics. Those are contact athletics. Those are large group athletics, and probably will not be permitted until Phase 3 or Phase 4. The governor's order, I thank you for actually bringing this up, Jim, I forgot. The governor's order that limits groups, congregations of greater than 10 is still in effect through Phase 1, with the exception of municipal legislative bodies. For us, that's town meeting. Places of worship, which are limited to less than 40% capacity of the building, and specific guidelines that have to be addressed by each congregation or church. And also for any outdoor space that is unenclosed, not closed. Those are your only exceptions to that under 10 rule. So for now, the answer is no, but direct them to this document. Once you get into it, it's pretty good. And then there's individual links that talk about each of those sectors of the economy.
That's the reason why I asked, so you could clarify it, because I'm sure I'm gonna hear ongoing, so.
We talked about this morning at a facilities meeting that we had. I would not anticipate formalized gameplay at any of our fields at all through the summer. We'll be lucky to see if we have a football season in the fall, but I wouldn't plan on that right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Nope.
Rick, anything?
Nothing.
Joe?
Yeah, just one statement. Today, it's looking like if you have gone through the COVID-19 sickness, that it's starting to show that you will have an immunity for it. Scientists have done tests on laboratory monkeys, injecting it, and I don't know how the process goes, but they're starting to hedge that if you have had the COVID-19, you may be immune from recatching it.
All right. Thank you. All right, so we will go on to the next item of business then, and that's Donna is going to talk to us about some funding opportunities that are available. So in your packet, it would be the information that's from the Department of Housing and Community Development. That's where this starts.
Right, so I'd like to thank Donna for appearing tonight. Joe and I have had a few conversations over the last couple of weeks about different funding opportunities. They come fast at us. We've tried to distill what affects a municipality versus what affects the private sector. There hasn't been a lot of evolution in terms of what's available for the private sector, other than the CARES Act and some of the other provisions that are out there. But there's also some provisions now that are beginning to receive guidance from the regulatory agencies on municipalities. So Donna's going to walk us through all of those and be able to just keep us in the loop on what we have available to us.
So that document that I was referring to is right after the minutes in your packet.
Board members don't have it, I've made extra copies.
Okay.
So it could be passed
Does
around.
anyone need a copy that Donna has prepared? You have it? You're set? Everybody good? I think we're good.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Donna, sorry
All
about
right,
that.
no, that's fine.
And I'm gonna ask you to use your best outdoor voice as possible, because
Okay.
those who are following along on the phone can't
Okay.
hear you, because your microphone only is picked up by community television.
All right, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
So we've heard, once the CARES Act of 2020 was, launched, we had heard that there was funding available within that package for Community Development Block Grant. We've been watching it. As you can imagine, funding first went to entitlement communities, communities like Pittsfield and larger communities across the Commonwealth. They've already received their funding through the CARES Act, and they're implementing programs. Municipalities like Adams, smaller communities, we are non-entitlement, and we just last week received this notice of funding availability through the CARES Act by the Department of Housing and Community Development. As the board knows, that's the state agency that we typically apply annually for our CDBG grant funds. The Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 program there's a total of $9.6 million available to non-entitlement communities. Municipalities may apply for CDBG CV funds to provide grant funding for up to $10,000 per business to qualifying micro enterprises that are adversely impacted by COVID-19. Now, how does this program define micro enterprises? The term micro enterprise means any commercial enterprise that has 5 or fewer employees, one or more of whom own the enterprise. And then because this is CDBG, they also have to meet low to moderate income requirements. Either the business owner, he or she has to be considered low to moderate income, or they need to serve a clientele primarily low to moderate income, or serve be in an area that is primarily low to moderate income. So we have, I had received the list from Haley of our licensed businesses, and there's 289 businesses in the town. So we're in the process. I don't think we're going to have an absolute accurate count, but just to get a general understanding of what we're looking at. Communities can apply for up to $400,000 for these funds. We have been working with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, and together we've talked about how can we get more money into the county and serve more communities. So what we're proposing is to submit a regional application with the town of Adams being the lead community. This would allow us to hopefully get beyond the 400,000 limit for a single community. We're proposing an application of 850,000. Now that would serve Adams, Cheshire, Clarksburg, Dalton, Florida, Hancock, Hinsdale, Lanesboro, New Ashford, Peru, Savoy, Williamstown, and Windsor. So it would be all of the northern Berkshire communities. And just so the board knows, Berkshire Regional Planning Commission is also working with, I believe it's Lenox, to apply for a South County, similar, where Lenox is the lead community. So one of the, as the board knows, CDBG is quite rigorous in terms of its application. That's all been reduced, and it's a good thing because the application deadline is June 5th. So we're talking about 2 weeks from tomorrow, basically, or 2 weeks from this Friday, when applications are due. So that we've got a lot of work, and one of the requirements, we still have a public hearing requirement. I have taken the liberty of advertising a public hearing, and I hope board members will be able to participate. If we cannot, we'll have to pull it and probably not apply. But we're proposing June 5th as the public hearing. I'm sorry, I said June 5th. June 1st. So it's Monday, June 1st as the public hearing date. So I don't know if we want to talk about that a little bit, but, so.
In 7 PM, that is the town election day, so we made the public hearing following the
Right.
closing of the polls. It will be 7 PM. That was decided around 3:30 today.
Right.
That's why you're just finding out now. I didn't have time to send an email.
Right, and it's really been, you know, since we figured out the approach, and then we had to scramble in terms of, usually the newspaper needs at least 48 hours in order to, you know, be able to publish an ad. They worked with us, but we had to have the ad in by 3:30 today, or else we couldn't do it. One of the things, because the public hearing will be a Zoom meeting, anybody that wants to comment will be allowed to comment both 5 days before the public hearing and 5 days after. We're also going to, given under the circumstances, we'll also be very open to receiving comments thereafter the application submittal, and that information, any feedback we get can go into the implementation of the program. But this is fast and furious. We are, it's very similar to the town's housing rehabilitation program because we have to go through a process of determining income eligibility. The same process will be used to determine eligibility for this, and do these businesses qualify under the low to moderate income criteria for this CDBG funding. So, although I will say that DHCD, they need to get the money out quickly. They've tried to streamline this, but they also have those parameters that they need to adhere to, and so will the towns.
So I've been asked previously, thank you, Donna, I've been asked previously, what funds does the town of Adams have available for small businesses in town? This is the first program that we have access to that will allow us to, as a municipality, as a government, as a public entity, to help the private sector. We had received notification of funding available through the through the State Attorney General's office, maximum of a $50,000 grant that could be also utilized to help small businesses. Donna and her team was right on that. We put in an application. We have not yet heard. So those have been the only two opportunities for municipal government to say, what can we do to help small business? What is going on for municipal reimbursement? Donna and her team are also looking at this. We have a couple of sources of funding. None of them are perfect. The first, FEMA, managed through MEMA. That is for any cost associated with the town responding to and mitigating to the COVID-19 emergency. Normally, that has a local percentage share component to it. It's usually, I think it's 25, 75, 25, I think, Donna? We just received notification yesterday through the State Office of Administration and Finance that the CARES Act funding component can be used by a municipality to match the FEMA funding. Adams is eligible for up to $712,000 through the CARES Act in a very similar structure to what a normal FEMA disaster reimbursement looks like. That doesn't mean we get all $712,000. It means whatever expenses the town has incurred, overtime, material, anything that was not budgeted and not expected and not revenue loss, can be applied for. Donna and Mary Beverly and all the department heads are keeping track of those types of expenses. For example, you may have heard me say 2 weeks ago, I think now, at our budget workshop regarding the wastewater treatment plant, our daily processing has gone up, and that also means our process chemicals have gone up. That is a direct result of the COVID-19 emergency. We can take that cost, break that out, put it into the reimbursement formula, and do that. That is the only mechanisms, I believe, so far, Donna, that we have. There's nothing else out there at all. As you know, the House, the federal House, is still throwing around another stimulus package. That doesn't seem to be getting a lot of traction, but we'll continue to monitor it. So I hope that that kind of gives everybody a snapshot as to what's out there. You're sitting at home, you're a small business owner, public, you want to know what programs are out there, go to our webpage. The town clerk has done a fantastic job of putting our COVID-19 information right up there in a banner. And then Kevin, our senior planner, is just keeping an eye on that to make sure that's updated with all the programs out there. But there's been nothing new since we've talked about the CARES Act, the payroll protection plan, and none of those are eligible for us to apply for. Did I miss anything, Donna? I think we...
No, I think, I mean, in this, as I said, this is gonna move quick, and town staff, we're not gonna sit and wait to see if we have funding. We're gonna go forward, assuming we're going to get funding. We're gonna be putting the application package together, so when we get that award letter, we'll be ready to go, and our businesses, and, you know, they can, you know, be prepared as well to respond, so we can get this money. Again, it's up to $10,000. It's meant to help you with, you know, if you're renting a building, staffing costs, other costs that a business, you know, obviously is having a hard time addressing during the pandemic. So we want to be getting these funds out as quickly as possible. So.
Thank you. Questions? I will start with Joe, because I'm trying to be mindful of Peter doing the panning and the people at home. I'm there. I was a communications major, Peter. I'm there for you. Go ahead, Joe. If you have anything.
First of all, I think what we had done as a board, making more positions in planning is really starting to pay off. And so I want to thank Donna and people that are doing the planning. With the time frames that we're seeing here, it's just nice that we have the extra people to be able to get these together. I like the regional approach, but should we receive the $850,000, how will it be divvied out proportionally to communities?
Well, it'll be first come, first served to some degree. Not every business, we have talked about this a little bit, we don't anticipate every business getting $10,000. There is going to be a justification process. A business is going to have to show that, hey, I haven't been able to pay my rent, you know, for, I don't know, two months or something. So there is going to be a focus on need. But you know, there's some communities in that list that have, as you know, very few businesses. And there are other communities that, are there many businesses that would be able to meet the low to moderate income criteria? I feel that we should be in a good position to assist anywhere from 35 to 50 of our businesses. But a lot of it is on them. Mm-hmm. They've got to provide the information. Like, I can't, you know, if they're going to take a month or 2 months to give me the, you know, my staff, the information that is needed to qualify them, that slows it down. Mm-hmm. But I think, Joe, we'll be able to do even better, potentially, for, you know, and getting more money into Adams.
Yeah,
so.
Well, that's always a good thing. And lastly, I think it was you I spoke to about how the community bank finally got themselves in a position to help out. Could you explain that? I thought that was a...
Well, it was an article in the Boston Globe that I
Right.
happened to read, I think it was a Saturday or a Sunday, and Charlie O'Brien, the bank president of Adams Community, was noted a couple of times. He was quoted in the article a few times. I will say I was concerned that they kept referring to the bank as being located in North Adams, but that aside, they compared, the article compared Adams Community Bank and a coastal savings bank, and talked about how they had been thwarted in the first round of CARES Act funding for small businesses, that the larger banks, Bank of America, et cetera, are able to push through so many applications as to keep smaller banks and their fewer applications out of the process. So they got creative and started working at midnight, at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and processing things then, and they were able, in the span of the second round of CARES Act funding, from Monday to Wednesday, get all 2,000 applications that Adams Community Bank had in for their businesses. And it really was a kind of a heartwarming story. It was just like, yay, team, you know?
Right.
So hats off for Adams Community Bank. And I have to say, having a mortgage with them, but they were right there sending out to all their community members that have mortgages that, hey, let us know if you need help. We're here for you and stuff. So it really was the way to do it.
Yeah, and I know some people that have received money through that program, and I don't want to mention the
Yeah.
businesses.
Right.
Rick, anything for Donna?
Yes, Julie, we have the staffing to administer this for all of North Berkshire?
It will be a shared effort with Berkshire Regional Planning staff. But I think importantly, from my perspective, I will be, through this program, potentially, we will be ensuring long-term employment for some of our staff. So I think that's a win-win. We all anticipate difficult budget decisions ahead, and I'm trying to make sure that our staff are fully funded by maybe non-town funds to ease, should that situation happen. So the answer is, there's always a trade-off, I think to your point, but I think we can do it in-house. It's not new for us to do the, to go through the process of determining eligibility. It's very akin to what we've already got a fair amount of, history with the housing rehab program. So I feel confident we'll be able to do it and do it well.
Okay.
Yes, Donna, we have a couple businesses in town that are right now shut down, basically. Not shut, one is shut down, the other one is slowed down immensely because of the bike trail being rebuilt. I'm sure part of it's COVID also. I mean, they can't open because of the COVID. Will that affect them at all because it's part of the bike trail restructuring?
I don't think so. I think the overarching thing would be the fact of people not being able to get together and stuff, and that they, like all retail establishments, or I should say most retail establishments, have had to close their doors because of COVID. So yes, that's that's a factor. It's a factor we would take in, but I think overall, I don't see that would be would exclude them outright. No.
Thank you.
John?
Donna, I agree with the regional approach and working with the BRPC. The level of review and approval, the town of Adams will review applications and we will submit them, I assume, to the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. Will they also have a final review and approval?
Yes, we're trying to, and again, this is hitting us so quickly, we have not figured out the exact process. Some of the things that Pat Mullins with BRPC staff and I've talked about is they maybe take in initial applications. For example, if I was somebody in the town of Florida, what am I sending an application into Adams, but I'm more comfortable sending it into Berkshire Regional. So maybe they do the initial review of applications, making sure that all the documentation is provided, and then they would ship it to us to evaluate from an income eligibility. Nobody likes doing that, so Pat said, you can have it. But we're looking at that way of divvying up the workload, so.
And the last question is, you mentioned the town of Adams being proactive in this approach. Do you plan on reaching out to the businesses that do on paper qualify by sending them an application or having a a public hearing or a training, or is there anything that you have in mind that can help our businesses get a leg up on this application?
Well, we will, so it will start June 1st. And certainly any businesses that either see the ad in the paper, my email address is in the ad. Any businesses that you know of, it's always helpful if somebody shoots me an email and says, hey, I'm really interested in this program. I really need this help. That would be very beneficial because we do have to demonstrate need to the Department of Housing and Community Development. So if I can show them that, hey, we've already got businesses that are clamoring for this, that will be helpful. So the public hearing would be first. Then we're going to be working on developing an application package. Probably jointly with BRPC, we will send marketing information to all of the communities. We'll definitely have a portal on our website. I've been thinking maybe we can make it easy where we do an online application, so people just go to the website and either fill it out on the website or certainly download the application. So to your point, John, yes, we definitely keep that in mind. If the board members have any suggestions as we go through this quickly, I'm all ears. We want to make this easy. And this, as most of you know, the normal CDBG process is 18 months, and routinely we get another 6-month extension. So really, each program is 24 months. They're hoping to have this done 6 to 9 months. So it's all fast track, and I think everybody recognizes the money needs to get out there quickly, and then people need to see, is there still more funding that's going to be needed? It helps folks. So.
Anything else?
And also, I just want to make a point too, that even though Town Hall closes technically for staff at 1 p.m., most of Donna's team and Donna herself remain. I remain well beyond 1 o'clock. DPW director remains here, and inspectional services has continued to operate at full staff. So we're getting close to the point where we have to reassess the amount of work coming in and put staff back to work. We just want to do that in a smart way and consistent with the guidelines coming from Boston. But I'd like to thank Donna and her team. Becky, who has still a long drive, she still comes to work here in town. So I thank them for their efforts, because this stuff is happening so fast and being put out so fast, and it's still so technical that without that team, I wouldn't be able to keep up with it. So.
All right, thank you. So Donna, there's no action from the board this evening, just that we've asked everybody to put on their calendars the June 1st, 7 p.m. public hearing, which is a Board of Selectmen meeting and public hearing. And then on June 3rd, is there a second public hearing, or no?
No, it would be June 1st.
June 1st.
And again, this has been moving so quickly. Initially, we were thinking of the June 3rd, which would have been your normal meeting date. But then there's been some concern that the 5 days after, we're still not going to be the 5 days after, but we're certainly offering more public comment than if we had it Wednesday. Typically, under CDBG, we have to have 2 consecutive weeks of notice. So they've eliminated that requirement, but we're still trying to do as good a job as we can in terms of public notice and getting the information out there, allowing the public under these odd circumstances to comment on this. I did print out copies of the ad that will go into the Berkshire Eagle. It will be published on Friday and on Tuesday. Again, surprise, we have a Memorial Day holiday. So again, just to be extra cautious and giving proper notice. So.
And we can get that on social media as well.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
I think that was part of the plan.
Yeah, we are, I appreciate the board's support. We're excited, town staff to be able to do this, do our part. So I really appreciate the board being willing to kind of meet, which is, such quick notice. Thank you.
Well, they were just informed this evening, so
I know, they haven't said anything.
Real quick notice.
we're hoping. Things are moving quickly, as Donna mentioned, so we're trying to meet some other deadlines and get this, so I do apologize that I didn't give you all advance notice prior to,
Donna, you got-
right now. Joe, you have another question?
Yeah, just to
Close it out?
piggyback on what John said, if somebody, who would be the contact person? Because I plan on going to some of the smaller businesses and telling that, who should the contact person be?
It would be me.
Okay.
You could give them that notice. Actually, Joe, we can make you extra copies if you want to just hand out that notice in
Yeah.
case they don't see it in the newspaper. And if they just want to do a phone call, you know, the community development number is 743-8300, extension 171, or my personal extension is 131. So by all means, call. We will put you on a list, and that will help us decipher, you know, how many businesses could potentially be eligible under this program. But I would appreciate, you know, like Jim, Joe, and any of you that have, hey, I think this business would qualify. Any of those heads up would be helpful to us. So, you know, to your point, John, if we didn't get an application, we can give them a call and, are you aware of this? So we'll try to make it as interactive as possible.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, just to follow up, that's great. Joe wants to go to this. Unfortunately, I think some of the businesses that are gonna need it the most aren't able to be open.
I know.
So we gotta find another way to reach them.
A fair point.
Well, maybe iBerkshires can do an article for us or something. We can
Sure.
explore that.
Okay. Anything else?
I'd just like
Very
to
good.
say on Rick's point, the people that I'm gonna approach, I know them personally, so I can call them if
Sure.
that their businesses aren't.
Say too. Same thing.
Yeah.
Great.
I have a question for Donna. Don't have anything to do with this. I don't know if we can bring it
Okay.
up now or not, but I've gotten a number of phone calls about the Grove Street project and Crowell Street project. Are they still in line for a time frame that they were scheduled?
You mean Grant Street?
No.
Or,
Grove.
Route 8.
Route
oh,
8.
Route 8.
I'm sorry.
Route 8 has not been, to our knowledge, the state has not advertised the project yet. We anticipate it to be any day, though. I'm not sure that's in Boston. It has nothing to do with town. We have completed all of our work. The right-of-way certificate was issued. So we're just waiting for it to be advertised. I would imagine they're dealing with a lot of things as well. In terms of Crotto Street, we are going to have via Skype our pre-construction meeting this Friday. As the board knows, Davenport Excavating or Davenport Trucking, I believe their name is. I haven't worked with them, but they are the low bidder. And so we hope to, once we do contract documents and everything has been approved, and the town administrator will issue a notice to proceed. So that will be a project going forward. We still have, I will say, we still have a few rights of entry from property owners to obtain. So anyone listening, that would be helpful to send those in. We've done a mailing to everybody along the road, so.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And if you will let Robert know that he can come on in. Thank you. All right, so the next item on our agenda is the topic of transfer station fees, and it's a timely matter. We are not taking any action this evening. This is all an informational presentation. I do realize that you have a lot of information in your packet, so I'm going to ask that when I do unmute Linda and I talk, and when Robert talks as well, that you reference the document that you might want us to be looking at, and maybe if it has a title or whatever it might be. Because as I look at it, this is the packet just on transfer station this evening, and there's quite a bit here. Before I open things up to Linda and to Robert, I'm gonna let you know that you're gonna need to use your outdoor voice, for anybody who's on the phone, which includes Linda listening, because that microphone only goes to the community television. The same with Joe's microphone that he's put at the end of the table, it only goes to community television, so the phone won't pick you up. So outdoor voice, and then I'm going to, yeah, that's the closest
Gotta reach this
phone.
one.
So Jay, I'm gonna turn things over to you, if you wanted to just give any type of introduction to this topic, and I know that Jim also serves as a liaison from our board, on this topic, so I'll let the two of you.
Great, thank you. So as everyone knows, this time of year, we usually take a look at our transfer station operation, both in the context of our budget season, as well as how are we doing on our permit fees, and what actions the Board of Selectmen will take with those required fees for the upcoming fiscal year. Unfortunately, as with COVID-19, everything is fluid and dynamic, and that is also true with the transfer station fiscal analysis that we have to perform. As everyone may know, Adams is a member of the Northern Berkshire Solid Waste Management District. They handle, through Linda Cernick's leadership as director of the district, all of our hazardous waste planning, mitigation, and essentially the management of the removal and management, bargaining, and implementation of the contracts for haulage. The town of Adams pays to remove the waste from the transfer station. The transfer station is funded in two methods: a budget appropriation, as well as a revolving fund, of which the permit fees and the bag tag fees go into. So it's essentially split 50-50. We pay for the removal from one or both of those accounts. So the amount of money that we have to pay for removal is directly proportional to the amount of money that we charge for a use permit at the transfer station. So right now, it is incredibly hard for DPW Director Tober and I to be able to go to the district, to Commissioner Bush, Commissioner Driscoll, and Linda, and say, hey, what's our fees gonna be in fiscal 21, so we can advise the board. We just don't have that information. So we don't know what it's going to look like, so we really can't give you an example. So as we have the conversation, Robert's got some more information for you. Linda and Jim have some information for you, just to give you the landscape of what we're looking at. There are some significant changes coming up with the management of these accounts. To give you just a quick introduction, so I don't steal Linda's thunder, there was a lot of the documents that you see in front of you is background that Linda provided to show you what the district's been working on and why we're in the predicament we are. There was a determination that those contracts have to meet prevailing wage requirements. The entire recycling and trash removal market, as it did in 2008, 2009, has been turned upside down. And locally, there's been consolidation of vendors, which means we essentially don't have as much competition. But I'm going to turn it over to Jim because he's in the room, and then he can turn it over to Linda. I don't know if I misspoke at all, Jim, but if there's anything that you want to add from your perspective.
Well, there is no competition. It's one owner now. So we're beating our heads against the wall when we're negotiating with them. We do have a outside firm negotiating with Casella Waste to try to reduce our costs. We do have a meeting tomorrow. We're going to be discussing the future contract. The contract will not be written tomorrow. And we're just going to have a rough idea what it's going to be, unfortunately. We are extended out to, I believe, September before we're going to be locked in anything because of COVID-19. So we do have some time to stretch things out and search, but there's not a whole lot out there. I'd rather have Linda talk about it. She's got a lot more knowledge on this than I do.
Thank you, Jim. So, as Jim stated, we've been in negotiation with Casella since December. with Kessler Consulting firm. And there are some changes coming down the pipeline due to the prevailing wage. And I did provide documents. The district took part in a hearing with the Department of Labor with two of the other solid waste districts, our co-partners, to try to challenge the classification rate that's being put on us. We are under the classification rate of the Department of Labor and Teamsters Union for heavy hauling of construction. So in your packet, you will see under the three-axle driver equipment, that is the prevailing wage we're facing.
Linda, I'm going to stop you. What are you looking at in the packet?
Emailed the prevailing wage information on the hearing, the decision, and then the prevailing wage document I had to pull to start negotiations.
Okay.
Does everyone see that?
The pages aren't numbered, so it is a cover letter on the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, Department of Labor Standards letterhead dated February 11th, 2020. Is that correct, Linda?
That's the hearing. Correct.
And then there's a 6-page document right behind it on prevailing wage rates.
Yes, that's the decision from the hearing that we attended.
So those are the documents that you're talking about, correct?
There should be another document behind it with
The decision.
of the actual prevailing wage. When you go out
Yes.
for contract, you have full prevailing wage through the Department of Labor.
Okay. So just pause one moment until we're all on the same page. So this is the first page. It's a letterhead. It would have been behind the community development block grant. There was some funding information for the transfer station. There was a contract, and then there was the contract dated 2015. It's right behind that. I apologize that the transfer station stuff isn't numbered. I should have done that. I apologize. Yep, that one. Yep, so Jim, you have it. And then there's a 6-page document right behind it, as well as the decision. So once you find this, you're in good shape. Rick, you're there? Joe, are you there? Yeah. John, are you there?
I am there.
Okay. Then I think, oh, you have it. I thought, okay. All right, so Linda, I think we're good to go.
So as you see under the three-axle driver equipment, under the prevailing wage that I pulled, we're facing a prevailing wage of $46.63. You will see every year it does go up, and we have to adhere to that prevailing wage. The hauler has to pay for that. For the employee, and they have to provide wage records to the district, and I keep those on file. They send them to me monthly. Prior to us going out to negotiate with Casella, the contract for the MSW and construction and demolition that is in place at this time was set before I started with the district and was set for 10 years, and it did not have to adhere to the prevailing wage of the Teamsters. It was under the prevailing wage of the Department of Public Works, and it was at like a $20 change per hour, and I don't know the exact rate. So there's a huge difference in hauling and wages that Casella will be adhering to. I did attend the hearing. We tried to, dispute the classification, and as you see, the Department of Labor, and again, they didn't go for, they went against us. So we have to adhere to the prevailing wage. Franklin, Hampshire is taking it to the next level to Superior Court. It has been put on hold due to COVID-19. It could take a year. We're not sure how long it's going to take, but they're taking it to the next level to see if they can reverse the classification. We're not disputing the Teamsters rate. We're disputing the classification, because the transfer station is considered a construction site for heavy hauling. So we're at a standstill there, so we have to adhere to that rate. So we started negotiations in December. It's been a long haul. We finally got some numbers together from Casella, and like Jim said, we are meeting with Trevor Mance tomorrow, manager of contracts, to try to negotiate lower rates and some provisions in this upcoming contract. So the differences you'll see for recycling, the current contract, and if I'm going too fast, let me know, okay?
I'll slow you down if I need to. You're good.
Current contract in place until June 30th. And at this time, the current contract has been extended to the end of September at a 30-day window to not exceed September 30th at the current rate because of COVID-19. So as it stands right now, the new current contract that we do negotiate should not hit until October 1st, unless COVID-19 goes away, and we know that's not going to happen. So for recycling, at this time, all of the towns in the district pay a haul fee. There's no processing fees. So there's a haul fee of $366 per haul with 2-ton or 4-ton. It doesn't matter how much is in that container for a double haul, which is a tandem haul, which is two hauls at once. A single haul is $381 a haul. The new contracts that they're proposing, there will be a per pull haul fee. So when that container goes out, you're going to pay a standard haul fee of $365. In addition, you're going to pay a processing fee. The paper will go to the Pownell, Vermont recycling facility for the paper. The plastic and glass will go to their Rutland facility. So they're proposing for the paper, we're going to be giving you credit. It's going to be a $10 processing fee for the paper per ton, on top of your $365 per haul. Plastic and glass, you're going to be paying $110 a ton for your processing. Average, the town of Athens does anywhere from 3 to 4 pulls per paper recycling and per plastic and glass. So reduction of hauls is key to this. And I can get into some recommendations after. For your MSW, and you don't have the construction demolition, so we won't get into that. Your MSW is your municipal solid waste, which is your trash. Right now, I want to say the district has had a gift for over 10 years. There has been no haul fees whatsoever with the prior hauler. It's just been a per ton fee. And right now you're paying $110 a ton for your MSW. Full or not. When it pulls out, they bill you if you have 2 tons, 3 tons. We've implemented that the Casella does not want that hauled until it's almost full. So full is about 8 to 10 tons you can get in that container with your compactor. So looking at this, you're going to be paying a per haul fee now because of the prevailing wage, and then a $97 per ton processing fee for your trash. We are going to try to negotiate these numbers down. Like Jim said, we're meeting with Trevor tomorrow, and I think it's going to be more than just one meeting. I put together some questions. The subcommittee, Board of Commissioners, have many questions. Recommendations for reduction in hauls is investing in a paper compactor. There is a grant we can apply for through sustainable materials recovery grants right now. They're due June 10th. If awarded, the grant is for $8,000, and I've been told and approved through Mass DEP that you can use that $8,000 towards a used paper compactor. I did email out information to Robert Tober and to Jim on recommendations from the town of Peru. They purchased a compactor a few years ago, and it has reduced hauls immensely. So let's say right now you're getting about 2.5 ton if you pack it well in that container. With a paper compactor, you can get anywhere from 5 to 6 tons. So that's your average tonnage right now that Adams is producing. But now with COVID-19, you're producing a little more because people are home. But that would reduce your hauls to 1 haul. So you have to do the tonnage, but if you don't compact it or reduce those hauls, you're going to be paying most likely for 4 to 5 hauls just for your paper. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, Linda, aren't we also looking at larger containers?
What's that?
The possibility of getting larger containers to reduce hauls. Are we looking at larger containers to reduce hauls?
So I looked at our containers, and I talked to Jan Amin, our co-partner out in Franklin, Hampshire, because she does our inspections right now through Mass DEP. We have 30-yard containers. If you went with a 40-yard container with the roofs on them, it makes the container too high. So we do have 30-yard containers, and that's the standard for all transfer stations. We can explore the 40-yard container, but it's going to be considerably higher, and we have to make sure that the residents can access that safely to put your plastic and glass in. The paper compactor, those containers are pretty large. I can see if Trevor can do something bigger. But again, I think the compactor is going to be the way to go, it being this year or next year. You know, that's entirely up to you as the board to decide if you want to apply for that. I would apply for you. But we are going to talk about that tomorrow with Trevor. You know, on one note, I did send over the assessments too for the town's assessments for the district, and we did lower the assessment rate. We appropriated $6,000 from our reserve, so that's bringing your assessment rate down a little bit this year. I don't know if you can use that. So, and we're
okay.
And at this time, North Adams is you know, at a hold on joining the district with COVID-19. We were moving forward, but it went to the city council. Now there's a new city council, and Williams College did present, but we have not, you know, gotten any further with that. So we're going to go with the assessment without North Adams joining. We do have the opportunity for the Charm Center, and I don't know if Jim has talked to you a little bit about that. Charm Center is a center for hard-to-recycle items such as tires, brush, electronics, mattresses, items that the town of Adams doesn't collect yearly and that are very costly to recycle. And we have an agreement with North Adams at this time that any resident in the district can utilize the Charm Center with a cost, of course, for each item. But that we're working on prices on that as well as we move forward.
Yeah, that'll also reduce our costs because we won't have to run the bulky waste any longer. It'll all be going to North Adams at our residents' discretion instead of once a year, correct?
Well, they'll be able to, Mike and I are working a monthly Charm, so there'll be a specific day just for our residents.
Right.
To use the Charm. But we talked about getting an MOU together, so that's our next step. When Mike has the MOU, memorandum of agreement, then we'll meet and our understanding, and then meet, and the board will approve or disapprove of the MOU. But we are trying to get this lower. But like I said, every solid waste, Franklin, Hampshire, Hilltown Resources are all facing the same prevailing wage and haul charges. A lot of the Franklin, Hampshire, and Hilltown Resources are using the Springfield MRF. We didn't choose to go with that one because Casella is our hauler. They have their own MRF. It would be a longer hauling if we went to Springfield. And all of the towns had to buy into the MRF and sign a 10-year agreement. And that would have triggered a special town meeting, and we couldn't do that on behalf of the town without everyone approving it through meetings. So we're at the same processing fees as the MRF. But some of their hauling charges are a little lower because the towns are closer to the Springfield facility than we are to ours.
Linda, I'm gonna stop you there. I'm gonna see if Robert has anything, or Jim, go ahead.
I just want to add one more thing that you didn't mention, Linda, that North Adams is going has on the Kessler consulting fees too.
They are, I'm sorry, yes, you're right, Jim, thank you. Forgot about that.
Okay. Robert, anything to add?
Yeah, again, I don't know if this is in your package or not, but we did try to include a spreadsheet that Linda had put together, and this was an attempt to get some kind of an idea on what this pricing change would be. It should be labeled recycling costs.
Yep.
Yeah, if you look at the top row there, Adams, and you go all the way over to the right, we're predicting, again, nothing's in concrete here, we're still negotiating, but based upon figures from 2019, we're expecting about a 33% increase for Adams for recycling. That's, in dollar terms, about $9,828. And the calculation of those figures are all based on that row that you see there. Again, they predicted, based upon 2019, the average number of pulls for that year, the tonnage, and then we predicted out what that change would be. Again, it is dependent upon what the negotiations come up with, but that's our prediction based upon these numbers right here. So about a 33% increase, which comes out to about $9,828. That's for recycling. If you go to MSW, which is another spreadsheet, and you go to the top row for Adams, this includes all the other towns too. There's 11 of them, but just for Adams, if you look at that for MSW, go all the way to the right-hand column, the total, we're looking at about a 34% increase. Dollars, we're talking $5,130. You see that on the spreadsheets?
Yeah, okay. I was gonna do the take a picture thing, and then like.
Is it underneath that one right there, John? On your left? Is it underneath that? Underneath that?
Yeah, I just want to take a quick look, I'll get this back.
Okay.
Or I'll try it.
Everyone has the document? Okay. I will open it up to questions, Robert, unless there's anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's it. Linda pretty much announced that. Maybe one other thing, as far as, I did do a little bit of research on our permit fees. We charge about $50 for access to the transfer station. Mm-hmm. Other towns are charging considerably more, just to give you some idea. Williamstown is charging $120 a year. Windsor is $75, and Cheshire is $100, so.
I will open it up to questions from the board, and the camera is pointed in that direction, so that means Joe gets to go first with any questions you might have for Linda, for Robert, for Jay, Jim.
Well, there's a lot to digest here, and I just received this, but a few initial thoughts that I have is when you get a monopoly and you have the market, and TAM, they weren't unionized, were they? Whoever would like to answer, was TAM, the hauler, were they a unionized group?
Well, no, but the union doesn't really dictate the prevailing wage. Because we're hauling from a municipality, we have to adhere to it. Does that help answer that question?
Yep, and as far as Casella, what's their geographic scope? Are they nationwide haulers?
I believe so. I know they have a lot of New York, Connecticut, and Vermont, but I can't say if they're nationwide. I can look it up right now for you on the website, though.
They are nationwide. I went to a seminar, MMA conference, and the people there were saying that Casella Waste is a nationwide organization.
Okay, because why I say that, just recently, Casella bought Daily Trucking, which was a, moderate size, nothing really big, but this is what nationwide companies do. They buy out their competitors, and you probably see that if you were able to look at the history of Casella disposal. Another thing, once again, I wish I had more time with this. This is an important issue. And one thing that I realize at our transfer station, and I've brought this up, our compactor isn't on a three-phase, so our compaction isn't getting to the maximum when we compact the trash. So we're sending out bulk, which isn't compacted as much as it could be. Another thing, too, when it comes to the recycling of plastics, aluminum cans, and glass, I see when I bring my recyclables up that is still bulky. If there was some type of compaction within those bins to break things and bring them down more, because they fluff up as you bring in cans, and plastics and glass would break, of course. So is that something that is a possibility?
We are looking into glass crushing programs. So
Yeah.
there's a grant we can apply for, but as of right now, we don't have the volume for the program. But we are looking into their traveling glass crushing operations, where we could separate the glass from our recyclables, and then the traveling company comes around, aggregates the glass, and they take it to their facility. I don't know if there's a compaction program for plastic. I don't believe there is, but that's something we can ask Peter tomorrow when we meet with him.
And plus, a lot of the cans that are there are aluminum, and they could be crushed down, because if you just throw them in, they all kind of just bulk up and become, quote, fluffy, whereas if you could compact them down, you definitely would be able to get more in each container. And a problem I see now, too, is that it appears to me that the transfer station, with the advent of a Casella coming in, it's going to be, I don't think we can make it into a profit-making business. With the use, I don't know that for a fact, but once again, a lot to digest, and I haven't really had a chance to look at everything. But a problem I know that's going on is that if things get higher, you're going to see people just going on back roads, and I see this already. And I know a place where I can bring you in, you're going to see 300 tires or more down an embankment. And so if prices continue to go up, particularly in an area where we live, and where people are economically strapped, they'll find ways to get rid of refuge illegally. And it's always happened. I mean, there's people that will be doing that, but that's just another thought. And I'm going to just make I was just going to ask one question. When I look at the Adams Transfer Station 3-year comparison, when I looked at fiscal year 2019, we had sold $16,000 worth of bag tag stickers, but last year we only sold 9,500. Well, that's the number. And what do you attribute the lessening of people buying the bag tag stickers? It's pretty appreciable. It's quite a drop in what we had, using the figures, which are small, from 16,000 close to 17,000 to about 11,500. The permit stickers went up, but the price also went up for a permit sticker. So what does that seem to tell you?
First of all, hold on, Linda, for a second. These numbers are generated by the treasurer's office.
Yeah.
Most people will buy ahead of time. So
Okay.
those numbers aren't pure fiscal numbers.
Yeah.
There's overflow. So in other words, if you're gonna buy a transfer station permit, you're probably gonna buy it in June but it translates as a fiscal 20 purchase. So Kelly warned me when she gave us these numbers, as I said at the budget meeting, they're not pure fiscal year-to-year numbers. There's overlap in them.
Yeah, but it will show the trend that, you know, the transfer station is, you know, I don't think we can, depending, I don't know the final figures, but, you know, we're gonna have to take a look at the transfer station, if it's a viable, you know, I want the transfer station. I think it's something that, you know, our citizenry should have the opportunity to partake in, but also you have to kind of look at the bottom line, and that's all I have to say right now. And perhaps I could say more, but I don't, this was just a lot thrown on me, and I just haven't been able to look at it.
And Joe, that reminds me, I should have brought up the point that this is what would typically be a workshop topic for
Yeah.
us to really digest. And the information in the packet, although it is a lot, it was more for discussion. There's no action being asked of the board this evening. It's a very important topic. It's something that a lot of our residents are using or would like to be using, the transfer station for that matter. And this is, you know, something that's going to conversation about contract and rates, and it's going to come back before us. So before it got out of hand, I wanted to make sure that we were all at least apprised of what was happening. I mean, Jim's been doing a great job communicating that to us as the liaison, but at this, so it's, treat this, I guess, as a workshop and not as something that we would be voting on. So I forgot to preface this conversation
But
with
Madam
that.
Chairman, in order for me to have a viable discussion on this, I would need to have this kind of a little bit earlier to make a more viable
Understood.
discussion.
Understood. I'll do better.
No, that's no reflection, just saying.
Linda, go ahead.
I wanted to just address Joe's point. So the aluminum cans, there's 2 points on here. Aluminum cans can be put in your scrap metal. Many towns put tuna cans, every can possible in their scrap metal. Then now you're not paying to recycle them.
Right.
You could implement that.
Yeah.
2, I don't look at your bag tag reduction sales as a negative. I look at it as a positive, because the whole goal with Mass DEP is to reduce your MSW and increase your recycling. Everything put in a trash bag, most of it can be recycled. So I look at it as a positive on that. And we could do a survey. A lot of people buy permits, but they don't use the transfer station for everything. They just use it for the recycling, the events, the other aspects of it. They may have a private hauler pick up their trash, but Adams is doing a great job with recycling, and that's a really positive note that I wanted to bring to all of you, that you're a star at that. So
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Rick?
I have no questions at the moment. I'll wait until after we get all the thing tomorrow.
And we're talking about rates and, yeah. Okay. Jim?
Yeah, as far as bag tags and stuff, I think if and when the charm program starts with North Adams, we're gonna see an increase in bag tags and stickers, because now people will be buying stickers to get rid of their bulky waste in North Adams, which we're not doing at the present time. We have a lot of small haulers in town that are taking stuff away, so that they don't need the bag tags. The small haulers are hauling them out, but they're using the sticker to get rid of their recyclables up there. So there's a lot of variables going on up there that you have to understand. And like I said, I think the charm program is gonna help Adams out immensely.
All right, Jim, thank you. John?
I can remember years ago that we used to, as Joe alluded to, we used to have to crush our cans. That was a requirement. And we used to break the glass. When I was in the Boy Scouts many years ago, that's what we did. So there are ways to work to reduce some of the costs and change the habits of the the individuals that have the permit and the bag tags. But just a statement to make, and yeah, there's a lot of information here, and it's a workshop topic, is that I started to look at this as, after this crisis is over, what type of community are we going to be? Do we want to be? And looking at this as a service. You take the library, right? It's a service. Nowadays, it may be, you know, out of date, and according to some people, but I think it's a great building, and I support the library. But it's a service. Does it make a profit? No. It is subsidized by revenues, by taxpayers, by state funding. Take Council on Aging. You know, I don't know what other organization in our town government that makes a profit. So I started to change I know years ago, we talked that we want to make this revenue neutral. What kind of a community do we want to have? And I think a lot of people like to have, as Joe's indicated, a few others, that a lot of people like the transfer station. So my focus is to treat it as a service. Everything else we do, nothing makes a profit. It's, you know, we subsidized everything we have here. What type of community do we want coming out of this crisis? So hopefully that will be one thing that makes it through. Maybe it won't, but that's the way I'll look at it. And again, it's a workshop discussion.
Okay. All right, thank you.
The one thing I wanted to point out, we did discuss the rates. I don't believe that at the present time we should look at increasing or decreasing or anything with the rates until we have a final contract with Casella Waste if we do go that route. Because we don't want to, down the road, say, hey, we got to go up $10 on a transfer station sticker, and all of a sudden find out that the contract, we have to go up $20. We don't want to, I don't believe we want to be in that position. We want to go once with the increase and make the increase, you know, where we have to be.
However, keep in mind that most folks buy their permits for the fiscal year in June. Right. So if we leave it at $50 for June and July and August, folks who buy early will benefit from the lower price. And then when we know how to tailor exactly how much we have to go up, folks who buy it later will be getting a shorter window of usage, but a higher fee. So we just have to watch the logistics of how we.
My suggestion is leave it at $50 for the fiscal year and do the increase the following year, because we're not gonna know. I mean, we got an extension till end of September right now. It could get extended out further than that. We don't know. We don't know which way COVID's gonna go. We have no idea. There's a lot of unanswered questions out there right now at the present time.
And we'll get to that discussion when we have to talk about the rates.
I know, I just wanted to bring that up because the rates were mentioned, and,
yep.
You know, just so.
Okay. So I'm gonna, I want to thank Linda for joining us this evening and for giving us some information about what you're looking at with regard to the contract. And thank Jim and Robert for your input as well, and we'll continue to have these discussions as we need to set rates at some point. So thank you, Linda.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Linda.
So that brings us to ratification of financial assistant 3 for Ashley Sacco. In your packet, you have a letter from the town accountant, Mary Beverly, to the town administrator, and you also have in your packet a letter from the town administrator to me as chairman for us to take action this evening. Dear Chairman Hoyt, this letter is to advise the Board of Selectmen that subject to the board's ratification as provided in Section 10 of the Town Charter, Ashley Sacco has been appointed to the position of Financial Assistant 3 for the Accounting Department. Ms. Sacco has been working as a financial assistant for the treasurer/tax collector for the town of Adams and had expressed interest in growing within the town to fill the financial assistant 3 position recently vacated by the retirement of Barb Lewis in the accounting department. She has shown through her accuracy, dependability, hard work, willingness to learn, and excellent interactive personality and demeanor that she is an excellent fit for this position. As the sole applicant for this position. It is my pleasure to have her on board in this position, subject to ratification. She will begin this position effective immediately at the grade 7, step 8 rate of $23.50 per hour upon completion of any pending hiring requirements. Respectfully submitted, J.R. Green, Town Administrator. Jay, is there anything that you would like to add with this appointment?
No, just that we've taken a look at the position and tried to make an internal analysis as to whether or not the position should remain vacant. Should the position be filled part-time, or should the position be filled as it had been prior, full-time? The decision was made. It is an essential position. It was posted as such, and the position's now filled. And Ashley is doing well, learning the ropes, and we look forward to having a lot of efficiency created in that department by having her in the job. And we certainly thank Barb again for everything that she did for the town, for her long-standing career here with the town.
Thank you very much. What is the board's pleasure with regard to this ratification?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we ratify Ashley Satko to the town treasurer, whatever is, what is it?
It is.
Accounting, Assistant 3 for the accounting department, grade 7, step 8, step 8 rate of $23.50 an hour.
Thank you, Jim.
We got there.
Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Second from Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstention? That is unanimous. Thank you. And I'd say welcome aboard, but she's already been on board for years. And just welcome to a new office.
Moved up the stairs.
Excellent. All right.
Moved up the stairs,
Yeah.
that's right, moving on up.
So I will welcome back to the podium our DPW Director, Robert Tober, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the parking meters. Jay, I might turn it over to you to see if, or do you want to, okay. I will just say that 8 or 9 weeks ago, I don't know, sometime in March, we had made a decision as part of the emergency orders to, I guess, shutter the parking meters for a period of time. Part of the reason to do so was to get people used to taking personal responsibility for their own hand sanitation or gloves or whatever PPE that they would need to go out into the world and to function. I think that 8 weeks has been a good amount of time for us to learn all of our hygiene habits so that we can get back to some sort of normal. So I've invited Robert this evening to talk to us a little bit about what the plan would be to bring the parking meters back into service. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to you to walk us through that.
Yeah, well, with the notification to go ahead with this, the plan is very simple. DPW will take the initial purpose of removing the covers and then cleaning them off using a bleach water solution and then wiping them down with paper towel, and basically doing that to all the meters. We will continue on a daily basis if that's the recommendation, but we'd also like to pass this on to our official meter staff member, the animal control officer, and have her take the process at that point. She should be able to handle that, and that's basically what we're looking to do.
So yeah, so that would be, to get them back in operation, DPW is looking to sanitize all of the meters that have been shuttered for this period of time. And then it is in the job description of the animal control officer / parking attendant for routine maintenance of all of the meters. This would be considered routine maintenance anytime she's using the machine to make sure that she's spraying it down for her own safety. And that those materials would be supplied by DPW. But it really would be up to individuals, their own personal responsibility, just like when I use the ATM machine or I use any other type of public kind of machine. I'm using my hand sanitizer before and after use, and I think that would be on the public at this point. Jay, did you have anything to add?
That was a discussion that we had, was whether or not it was safe to restore them to service. The concern is very simply the sanitation of the machines. We don't have the staff or the time to continually sanitize them. The users have to take personal responsibility, use them accordingly, and we're concerned about the parking control clerks touching the meters to empty them. We have that sanitation plan in place. So every time Kim goes to empty a meter, she'll clean it down, and we just advise the public, like an ATM machine, as the chairman said, or any other type of public doorknobs or anything like that, just sanitize yourself when you're done.
Yep.
Very simple, straightforward process.
And it would need a vote from this board to put them back in service. So we can open up for questions, or I could take a motion, whatever the board's pleasure is.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead,
I
Joe.
just, once again, now the sanitizing every day, Kim will have to go every day to each,
Just
okay,
just the
when
one that
she
she's
empty,
using.
and, when she empties them? Okay, because that's just
Yeah,
too time consuming.
correct.
And so if tonight we agree to reopen the parking meters to the public for, a fee, is Kim ready to go and start, is she up and ready to go to start looking at them, to ticket them
Yep.
and stuff?
So
And another question, the first time somebody's at a meter, is it gonna just be a warning? Because I think instead of a fine, will the first time a person is overparked, the time is off their meter, is that gonna be automatically a fine, or is it gonna be a warning so people know that this is happening?
I would,
Because in the past, we've been pretty inept at collecting fees from the parking lot, the parking meters. I know, years ago, the police used to do it, and then the police said, oh, that's not our job anymore, so, and then a lot of the meters were faltering, and so I was just wondering, how, if we okay it, is it going to work?
my own opinion would be to put a date in place that this would go into effect. So maybe, again, my own opinion would be maybe the effective date would be June 1st, right? So it's a week and a half from now. That gives DPW time to clean all of the machines and unbag them. It gives Kim some time with the machines. I know that she has worked with them in the past, but she can make sure that they're all emptied and working. And it gives us time to then communicate to the public that these are now back in service and need to be used for parking purposes. That's just my own opinion to answer.
Oh, yeah. And my final question about parking meters, I know at the visitor center, we had those parking meters put in. What's the future of them? And I noticed one has already been hit by either snow pushing it over a little bit, or...
We still need to workshop that and put in some parking rates and information for that particular lot. So that still has yet to come before
Okay.
our board.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And part of the delay was some of the talk about moving the Council on Aging and trying to time that better. But that does need to come back before our board. Other comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion, if anyone would like to make one.
I make a motion, we put the parking meters back in service
Effective,
June 1st, is that what you're saying?
I just suggested it.
It's kind of 2 weeks, that's kind of,
A week and a
Right.
half.
yeah, June 1st.
June 1st? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion on the parking meters? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That is unanimous. So the parking meters will go back into effect as of June 1st. And we'll communicate that effectively to staff and to the public. Thank you very much. Robert, I appreciate your input on that. That brings us to the next item that we have to take action on. At our April 29th meeting, we did open the town meeting warrant. We are still moving forward with a town meeting scheduled for Monday, June 22nd. And still working out the details with the town moderator and the town clerk for what that would look like. But the order of business before us this evening is to close the town meeting warrant. I will notify all of you that we do have a citizen's petition that did come forward that will be put on the town meeting warrant. This is an item for the Veteran Property Tax Work-Off Program. That is the petition that was submitted with all of its signatures intact. This was actually submitted in December, and the person who did submit it held off until our next town meeting. So this has been with the town clerk's office on hold until this time. But Mr. Bianchi has been before our board and has talked about this program in the past, and has gone forward with the appropriate number of signatures to get it on the warrant. So that is the only item that has come before us. At this point, I do need a motion to close the town meeting warrant.
So moved.
Thank you, Rick. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Jim. Any discussion or questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that is unanimous. And then let's get to the heart of the meeting. And we have in front of us final discussion and approval of the fiscal 21 budget. It's part of the agenda, and in part of your packet is the table of contents from your budget book. What I'd like to do is go through each section of the budget and ask if anyone would like it held.
Give me a drum here.
What do you need over there? Oh, are you making a lot of noise over there? Is that what's
I
happening?
guess, this table acts too much like a drum.
Okay. Well, it's like all of a sudden there's a distraction to my right. I didn't see Peter react, that's why. So if we can, we'll go through the table of contents. I will mention the section of the budget. If you would like it held, please ask for it to be held. So the first item would be executive. Under the executive section is Selectmen, Town Administrator, Town Council, Moderator, Town Report.
Madam Chair, I just have a question before we begin.
Oh, sorry.
Is, what about the revenue and those areas that, if there's questions on that, can we go through those?
You want to go through those first?
General.
Sure.
So I'll hold that area. I just have a few questions on the general, the
Well,
general information at the beginning.
Because you're talking about the budget overview.
Yes.
Yep. So why don't we do that first?
Okay, so I'll hold that. Or do you want to do that for?
Because that's not part of any of these sections.
Okay.
So, yeah, so if you have questions on the revenue side, which would be in the, kind of that first section of the budget book, right?
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and ask those questions? I apologize.
No
I
problem.
forgot about that part of
That's
the
okay.
budget.
It's the early pages in the budget where the revenues are identified for the town of Adams for the next fiscal year. These revenue inputs were identified prior to the crisis we're currently in. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them were. For example, state aid, which has increased every year, not by a lot, but it does increase. And this year, for the next fiscal year, going by the cherry sheets that are available at the time, and they do tend to change by the time the state legislature makes a final budget, usually into July, on a normal year, is $2 million, well, I'll just say it's about $2.8 million. The excise tax is, that's state, but you get the local, is your property taxes make up a large chunk of your local revenue. Also, we do well in the motor vehicle excise taxes, among other permits, fees, things like that. So if you look at just the motor vehicle excise tax, the estimated for fiscal year 2021, which is it's a conservative compared to last year, I would say, $960,000. So, and also the Economic Development Fund, which is based off of lodging and meals tax, taxes that come back to the town of Adams from the state, and also the use of free cash to offset the tax rate. So that's, may not be every revenue source, but those are the major revenue sources. So we made these, we built the budget, Jay Green and Mary did an excellent job. We had a budget subcommittees, went through it a few times, and then we had a budget. Now things have changed. And in my opinion, the budget that we're approving, or that is up for approval this evening, will not be the budget that we'll end up with. Not gonna happen. With the federal government has not, to this point, provided funding to state and local governments, which have taken a large hit. I know there's some grants that we're working to get funding for, but we have no idea, and really no community really has any idea of the amount of state cherry sheet funding for schools or for the communities. So this budget we have here today, and without having any state and local funding provided by the federal government, which is in the Senate, the U.S. Senate at this time, I believe, where we have our police officers and our teachers, and I can't speak for the water department, but the firemen. So the money, the state does not have the revenues it has had in the past. It had a rainy day fund, which I'm sure is going to be used up rather quickly, and they're still going to want to have a rainy day fund at a certain amount. So just to summarize, that the town of Adams and almost every community in the state will have less revenue from the state, and we'll find out most likely in a very, I would imagine next month or so, within the next month, we will know a better idea of what the, I assume, reductions will be. So just a couple questions, Jay, is that I know I've asked this question before, and the process we took is probably the only process we can take, because that's the information that we have at the time. But as we get closer to July 1, and we've anticipated so much in excise tax, and we anticipated so much in state revenue, which we will not know for a little bit. What do you have concerns, or what is our process as, we go into July 1st with the full staff we have today, and we're moving forward because that's all the information we have. But looking into the next few months, the Economic Development Fund, I think, we probably could say is not going to be receiving much revenue in that fund, but we're moving forward as we would if we had the funding. The excise taxes may go down. I don't know. I can't foresee that. So July 1 is coming up rather quickly. We're going in with the same staff that we have currently into the next fiscal year. What do we, the thoughts on July 1 hits, and all of a sudden we're not getting the revenues, minus the state revenue that we expected. What will be the recourse of action? I know there's still some time out yet. So, long question, but.
Short answer, it's going to be painful. There's going to be cuts across every department, and it's going to be based on what our state aid number says. That'll be probably the first number we have. We have budgeted $2.5 million. If we receive a number from the state that says you're only going to get $1.5 million, then we know we have to take $1 million out. We're prepared right now to cut $800,000 out of the budget, and it'll be painful, and it's going to be bloody. And that's one of the reasons why we don't want to do it right now. Because if we do it right now, we might be causing more harm to providing services than what we need without knowing what the data shows. So we've decided that because we're already lean and mean, we already run a tight ship. Every office is down to bare bones for staff. Every service that we offer is down to what we can afford. That doesn't mean that we're on our knees. It means we're very smart and we're very conservative and we're efficient in how we deliver services. But what that means is if we go into this budget and take $250,000 out, or we take $500,000 out, it's going to affect what we do. Therefore, we feel the better approach is wait until we have a number that we know we can work with, a target number, and we have a menu of options within that $800,000 that we'll look at, come back before the board, go back before the finance committee, and then go half the town meeting and adjust the budget that way. School district has to do the same process, and towns that don't put a budget forward or go month to month will eventually have to build their budget, cut during the building process, and then put it forward with all those numbers. If we go month to month now, we can't spend anything on our capital, and we also can't adhere to any of our collective bargaining agreements that were previously voted in by town meeting. So we feel if we can have a safe town meeting, then we put a fiscal 21 budget forward, and we know that as we go from month to month to month, we're very judicious and very conservative in how we spend and watch those numbers. And then when we get the state aid numbers, or if we're watching those excise, tax numbers, we're able to tailor it accordingly. Now, the one thing that I will comment on, if you look at page Roman numeral 13 in your budget books, and for folks that don't have this at home that are watching, this essentially is our document that shows how we fund the budget from local receipts. And what Member Duval was referring to is a large portion of these local receipts are funded from motor vehicle excise tax. Our estimated receipts from fiscal 2019, we estimated in the budget of $944,504. Actual receipts for fiscal 2019 was $988,039. So we received more in excise tax than what we had budgeted for. If you look at estimated fiscal year 2020, we're estimating that we'll have $975,000 in excise tax received for this open fiscal year. And if you look at our estimated fiscal year 21, we're only estimating $960,000, which is less than fiscal 19 actual. And if you look all the way down at those other columns on that sheet, as I had pointed out at our budget meeting, Mary has been very conservative in terms of our receipts for what we're budgeted for. So if we keep our fingers crossed, if we say our rosaries, knock on wood, however you want to say it, we might be able to get by without significant cuts based on local receipts, independent of that local aid number. But these receipts don't come in all in one shot. They're spread out. So that's why we have to be very judicious as we go forward with it. But for us, it's a very conservative budgetary approach. It works for us as a community, and I think it actually puts us a couple of steps ahead in this crisis, because we can watch it and we can monitor it. And we haven't been, for lack of a better term, living above our heads. We're living within our means. And I think that's important from a municipal budgeting standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Just two quick questions. The assessor has estimated for our community, and this was an estimate we've had since the beginning of the budget process, is 2.2 million of new growth for the town of Adams. My concern will be that with the slowdown, and again, the crisis we're going through, but I think having the building inspector and the inspection services continue was the right way to go. But that's a concern, because when you get to October, when the tax rate is set, that is a very important number, is growth. So 2.2 million is the estimate. Have to keep an eye on that. The last question I have is the process. Now, with town meeting, we go to town meeting with this current budget, let's say, and it gets approved this evening, and it goes on to the finance committee, and then it goes to the town meeting, and then it's approved, right? If we had a reduction, let's say we do get state aid is brought up pretty close. Let's say, let's say the Economic Development Fund didn't, we're really not getting anything there, but we may have to take some action there. We don't go back to the town meeting for another vote. We make a decision that we just can't fund that area for now. So at what point does the town go back to a town meeting with a different budget? Because we can reduce throughout the year in different areas, but what is going to be that, the tripping point that's gonna have us go back with another budget?
We have to strategize with the town accountant and determine at what point with the Department of Revenue, we have to set our tax rate on the tax recap sheet. Because even though we may choose not to spend money, we still have to show the Department of Revenue how we raise the money that's been appropriated. So in other words, just for keeping it round, if our budget is $10 million, we say we're gonna raise $10 million, and we're gonna raise it through local receipts, and then a portion of free cash, and on the tax rate. So even though we say we're only gonna spend 8, but we say we're gonna raise 10, we have to raise 10. We don't spend it, it just gets converted into free cash. So at some point, we have to strategize when we feel we have enough data. Our projections are based on some empirical data, not just wild speculation. And we're getting to the point where we have to look at setting that tax rate. That's probably the time we're gonna talk about going in and making those cuts. We also wanted some time to talk about with the Department of Revenue and what the federal government is doing. There is a pretty strong movement advocated for by our legislative delegation that the federal government specifically pass legislation that will allow communities to petition for loss of revenue. So there's the opportunity, if the federal government and or state government decides to pass